Justin, are you doing another experiment?
Hey, Andrew. Oh, yeah. You just came in just in time. Oh, mind the floor. Okay.
You know, I really only came because we were supposed to have a podcast recording 6 hours ago, and I was worried about you.
I know, and I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I just, I got caught up because all of a sudden, Andrew, look what's in my hand.
Is that, I mean, it looks like a microphone.
It does, but it's not just any kind of microphone. It's a microphone that has elasticity and abilities to understand. Am I recording it right now? This is our new episode of Nothing New, a Remake podcast. Hello, I'm one of your hosts, Justin Quizon.
And I'm Andrew Linde. And today we are talking about, oh boy, we went into the Disney vault to get this one out. We're talking about The Absent-Minded Professor from 1961.
And and that professor's invention, Flubber, in 1997.
Yes. Before we begin, I do want to shout out a friend of the show. Vera is the reason why we're doing this. Thank you, Vera. That was a good suggestion.
Yes. It ended up being a slightly bigger deep dive that we anticipated.
Yes.
And I'm for it. So thank you. And yeah, let's jump right in.
Yes.
Experience. Do you have any experience with this?
Well, Justin, I want to ask you, had you even heard of The Absent-Minded Professor?
Okay, so first of all, yes.
Okay.
Now, here's the thing. This goes back to my deep Disney dive, okay? I know I must have brought up this before, but I'll bring it up again because it's a long gap. I used to have a VHS that Disney put out, probably released late 80s, and it was in that classic white clamshell, but it wasn't a movie. What it was a compilation, a clips of various scenes, numbers, comedy bits from several Disney movies, many Disney movies. Almost like it's a weird sampler platter for kids. And they briefly mentioned titles of things, but like they didn't give you the full movie, but they gave you like the best of the best bits, right? So, Herbie, they show clips from The Love Bug, and they've shown clips of like other classic films, animated movies throughout the years, Bedknob and Broomsticks, of course, Mary Poppins, and of course, The Absent-Minded Professor. So here's the wild part about this VHS is that like they show you these clips with the assumption that maybe your parents will probably tell you what the movie is without really giving you a ton of setup. They don't really fully explain what's happening, but they will show you the clip like overall. So example is in the clip I saw from As My Professor, it's the basketball scene. And I genuinely, as a kid, did not know why they were bouncing around.
Yeah.
But the visual was so exciting as a kid that I loved it. I just didn't know the context. I didn't know why they were doing it. So eventually, Disney Channel did air The Absent-Minded Professor. And then when I was a kid, so I was like, oh, hey, it's the whole movie. So I could finally watch it. So yeah.
That's pretty great. That is so. Did they show the flying car?
Yeah.
In the compilation?
But here's the thing. I think they showed the flying car, but like that wasn't the highlight. If anything, the flying car was like the intro to showing scenes from The Absent-Minded Professor. So it was like but it was yeah. Of course, I mean, here's the thing. Yeah, they had to show a flying car. I mean, come on.
I was gonna say
kids are gonna love a flying car.
So bizarre. I do love Disney. I have my own memory of a bizarre Disney VHS. Is like it was only like all this. It was a bunch of songs, like a mix of songs, but it wasn't even songs necessarily from Disney movies. Some of them were just like old timey popular songs. Like it was weird and. they would shoot like music videos at the Disney parks with costumed characters dancing around and the little ball bouncing on the words at the bottom.
Of course. Yeah.
And the one, I think the song is just called Making Memories, and that's the one that is stuck in my head all the time, and it's Winnie the Pooh and Eeyore dancing around, and I'm like, but that's what I want out of Disneyland,
Right.
That's my vision of Disneyland. Is like, I'm making memories. Winnie the Pooh and Eeyore are dancing around.
Yeah.
It's like amazing. They were smart to release compilation stuff like that.
No, in the era of pre-internet,
Mm-hmm.
I will admit it's a vicious, smart idea to just latch onto that for us kids early on, but it worked clearly.
I will say I was at least vaguely aware of the Absent-Minded Professor, but I think as a kid I might have had that very common confusion with the Nutty Professor.
Totally fair.
Because I definitely watched that as a kid. The Nutty Professor that existed for us that came out. It's like, yeah, that's the one that I was like, somehow this is related to Flubber. I don't know. I think so. Makes sense to me. They're crazy inventors. Why not? But yeah, so this was my first time sitting down to watch the Absent-Minded Professor.
Oh wow. Okay.
I must have seen clips of it on the Disney Channel, like you're saying, but never the full thing.
And to give a little bit of like overall context of the film, this was like kind of Disney's first truly popular live action film. In so much as that we'll get to maybe a little bit later, but this was the first one that actually successfully had a sequel. So and we'll get to that a little bit more later. But yeah, no, this did really, really well for Disney. Disney was able to finally go like, hey, we're in the live action game. And it's funny because if you look at this movie, it does sort of like set up what people would expect from a air quote Disney movie.
Yes.
Even though hilariously there are no children as leads, the movie does have a family-friendly safeness to it, high concept, and is mostly a comedy.
Yeah. I think if we go through the cast, we'll see it's like the repeated Disney actors.
Yeah.
It's like very classic in that zone. Fred McMurray. Yeah. Which he was I've been going through the Disney Plus catalog. I'm like, let me get my money's worth from this thing.
Please.
And I don't know if we'd ever cover it, but he was in The Shaggy Dog. He was the dad. And Tommy Kirk, who is in this movie as well, is his son who turns into the dog.
Right.
It's like so funny. Like they just through all these movies. It's like, okay, who do we got? Yeah, get Tommy Kirk in here. We need a dad. Fred McMurray, you're in. And then the other classic is Keenan Wynn plays the villain.
Right.
And that is just, he's in, I couldn't even name, there's so many Disney movies that he appears in as a villain, and he's always got his huge wild mustache, and he's usually a banker. Like he's usually like, I'm going to bankrupt you. Like that's his whole plot. And it works. Like it's just a real classic mix of Disney actors from that time. And you just rebuild them in every film, and here they are. And in fact, Keenan Wynn,
I was gonna say,
reprised this role kind of.
Yeah, kind of.
In a Herbie sequel.
Yeah. It's one of those like, oh hey, we're not really committing, but it is.
He has the same name except for the middle initial.
Exactly.
And he looks the same, and he's a banker.
And might as well bring it up now. He is, of course, the son of Edwin. Edwin is in this film. Not a big part. Yeah. But I do associate a lot of Edwin to Disney as well.
Yeah.
So it's very good.
Well, and go figure, the son of the Mad Hatter would also have like a very unique look and voice. Like it's just anytime he shows up, it's him.
Right. And then this is kind of like a fun roundup of the cast, but I'll go for one more. We'll just go ahead and mention, of course, Nancy Olson, who plays the absent-minded professor's fiance, who's just dealing with being in a relationship with a man who keeps forgetting everything. Betsy.
Yeah, poor Betsy.
Third time's a charm, huh? it's like I'm assuming the only reason they are doing a weekday night wedding, because who does that, is that they figured maybe it's best if we schedule around a work day so that he'll just go immediately after work, because we've tried weekends.
And he has a housekeeper who's reminding him.
Right.
The setup of this movie is that this guy cannot, for the life of him, get his shit together. Basically, he is always so distracted by his work or something involving, chemistry or whatever. So he can never do things right. So the way the movie starts is he has missed his wedding twice. This is the third time that she will give him the third chance.
And here's the apparently the character that McMurray plays, Ned Brainerd, Brain's in the name.
Brainerd, yeah.
Brainerd, is loosely inspired by a chemistry professor at Princeton University who has earned a nickname Dr. Boom.
Oh, wow.
And apparently Disney met this professor, Professor Hubert Alia, I think Alia, and Disney told Alia that he had given him the idea for the film and invited Alia to give. Basically, Alia went to California to give a demonstration to Fred MacMurray about his experiments, and MacMurray actually started mimicking Alia's mannerisms for the film.
Yeah.
And MacMurray would say that he would never understand chemistry if it wasn't for his meeting with Professor Alia. So there you go. There's a little bit of weird actual scientist connection.
Yeah.
To this character.
Well, and I think the other thing, the absent-minded professor, absent-minded doctor, it's a common trope.
Yes.
So I think naming the film that was just very easy for them, because it was based on a short story called A Situation of Gravity.
Yes.
Which that makes sense when you know what Flubber does.
Right.
So it's like, okay, but that doesn't make a great movie title.
Right.
So they're like, Disney's like, we're just going to tell you exactly what this guy is.
Right.
He's an absent-minded professor.
Done. And it's here's the thing. It's kind of a cute idea for a movie, right? Is the idea the whole movie is centered around this sort of weird, eccentric scientist who is as brilliant as he is forgetful. That's the pitch.
Yeah.
And as we were kind of talking about even before we started recording, Fred MacMurray has such an interesting career.
Yeah.
He's
got range.
He's got range.
Some people, wouldn't think so, but I don't know. I think he's got range.
I think, here's the thing. In my brain, right? I told you that I have two Fred MacMurrays in my head. There's My Three Sons Fred MacMurray. Good old nice D dad.
Yeah.
The sitcom dad. And then there's this Fred MacMurray, who's the lovable, but he forgets things scientist who's excited about science. And there's also Double Indemnity Fred MacMurray. The Apartment Fred MacMurray, where he's not a particularly great guy in those movies. So I'm with you. I'm like, if you don't think he has range, that's two separate places he occupies in my head.
Yeah.
But on the night of his wedding, he gets caught up in an experiment. But that experiment leads to an explosion. Thanks, Dr. Boom. That creates a substance. It's elastic, gooey, self-energy creating substance that is basically, as he refers it, flying rubber. Henceforth, he calls it
Flubber. It's pretty simple. It is such a funny thing where he makes it and then he forms it into a ball and throws it and it starts bouncing all crazy.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh yeah, it's making its own energy. And then he throws 7 more balls and they're just flying everywhere. And it's kind of that old style special effect where it's they painted on or something.
Yeah, but you know what? Here's something where I'm going to kind of give I'm going to kind of give the movie a lot of credit for in terms of just how it looks. The movie was released in 1961, and so making a black and white movie is still pretty, is still the deal. But like, I think in terms of visual effects, I think this movie kind of holds up in the visual effects department. Yeah, it's drawn, but also it's 1961, so like this is the equivalent. The modern equivalent, I was making it CGI, but here it doesn't make the impact isn't as lessened just because someone hand drew the bouncing flubber. If anything, it's kind of better hid because the scene is at night and it's black and white.
Yes, I think that must be why they made it black and white, right? Like,
it had to be.
Yeah, just to make this easier for them,
right? Which is then funny because like I was talking about watching this movie with a friend, and I was like telling him, it's funny, is there's no real it's funny with concerning the remake, the flubber's so obviously green, but in the original black and white you don't know what color it is. And my friend's like, I mean, wait, it's not black. Wait, you saying it's not green in the original? We don't know.
Yeah. Do not know.
He never states the color.
Yeah, nobody ever says, oh, look at that green thing. Like, yeah, it's just
like, as far as we know, it's like a gray. It looks grayish, but that could be literally anything. Could have been blue for all I know.
Yeah.
But it does allow itself to look like a real tactical thing thanks to the visual effects. And I think a lot of the visual effects hold up, if not are kind of impressive.
I thought the flying car sequences were really good.
Right?
Yeah.
They were excellent.
I was like really impressed by that.
Yeah. Even bits where it's like driving on a wall and I'm like, oh, yeah, how did you do that?
Yeah. Well, it's not how did you do that? It's like you had to do that. Like,
yeah.
They literally did something. Like they had a car on a rig, or they had half a car or something, something like that. It wasn't just like, okay, we're just going to throw a green screen. No, they were really problem solving around how to make this car look like it was flying.
Right. And it's very cool looking. Yeah. I even like the little details of, even just in story wise, like that he's like, I even have like a fake sound of a real car engine.
Yeah.
So that when I'm just driving around, people aren't hearing this. Bloop, 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 bloop.
Yeah, for some reason that's the noise Flubber makes.
Yeah, Flubber makes
like a bubbling.
Yeah.
And also, look, okay, I understand. Flubber, it's right on that edge of being magical.
Yeah.
I don't know how it makes the car fly. I don't think it super matters, but
no.
It's not like the tires bounce and then it's carrying the bounce. It's something in the engine.
Yeah, it's something in the engine. I don't know how the energy that it produces creates enough extra energy that it could levitate things.
Yeah.
Okay, because here's the thing, right? Like, we'll get to some of the big
Flubber will fly on it. Like, it can, if you set it down, it'll float. Like, it has a weird energy to it where it's almost like I said, the name of the short story was A Matter of or The Situation of Gravity.
Right.
So it's like they're very much playing with that idea of something that is against gravity.
Right.
But it's like what you mostly see Flubber do in this movie is bounce.
Right.
And then all of a sudden he puts it in a car and the car flies. So it's like, okay, sure.
Sure. And then they threw the word gamma ray at the movie, and I'm like, sure, I'll go with that. Yeah, it's fine.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll whatever. Now, of course, besides the invention of Flubber, there are a couple other things going on. The college that he works at is in fear of maybe losing some sponsors and losing money.
The banker wants to close the college.
The banker wants to close the college.
Keenan Wynn. He's Alonzo P. Hawk, an evil banker. And his son goes to the college.
Yeah.
And his son just failed out of Dr. Brainerd's class.
Mm-hmm. This is Tommy Kirk.
And this got him, kicked off the basketball team.
Yeah.
Which that was the whole point of him going to the school, was to do basketball.
Right.
Because he's not smart.
Right, exactly. Here's the thing I want to point out is that Tommy Kirk's character, the son of the banker, I do agree that he definitely allows malicious things to happen.
Yeah.
But I also think it's mostly because he wants to just get his father's approval.
Yeah.
So he does, I won't say he's sympathetic 100%, but you can tell that a lot of his choices aren't because he's a jerk. A lot of his choices is because, I want dad to be proud of me or to like me.
He does have that. He has a couple of moments where you really see his heart is in the right place.
Right.
There's his dad bets against the college losing, and he's like, well, that's my team.
Yeah.
He's like, why are you betting against my team, Dad? Like, he's very like committed. Like, you can see that he has goodness in him.
Well, no, especially because like, even though he technically isn't on the team anymore, those are his friends.
Yes.
So he's like, why? No, I like that. That's kind of a nice little bit where it's just like you said, like he has some. There's an inkling of a good kid in there. This just he's trying to get the approval from a POS father. Yeah. You know, who doesn't care.
And maybe he's a little dumb. Like
he's a little dumb. He's a little dumb.
Yeah. But yeah, that's Tommy Kirk. Barely in it, but he's there doing his darndest.
Doing his darndest.
I think, just because it'll come up later, this Professor Brainerd has no lab assistant.
Nope.
He has no one helping him.
Yeah.
He has a dog.
Of course.
And that's, of course. It's a Disney movie. You got to have a dog in there.
It's fun. So many scientists have dogs.
Yes. Yes. Another interesting thing, you mentioned the college. Medfield College becomes like a central figure in Disney films from like this point on. Where do I have? It's basically like any time that they have someone doing an experiment in a film, or they're a student at a college that is science related, it's Medfield College.
Is that also where like the computer wore tennis shoes?
Yes.
Like the Kurt Russell period?
I'm trying to come up with the list. I didn't have it ready. But there is it's all those Kurt Russell films of Disney films, all of those were set at Medfield College. It's like really its own like weird sub-universe. They don't like exactly relate to each other, but they definitely mention it at like it became like even part of like theme park lore.
Oh wait, really?
So in Epcot they have the God, what do they call it? It's the Figment ride, like World of Imagination or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So they reference all of those. Like there is a door in that place because it's where it's like the Dr. Brainerd's lab,
right?
And it's like from Medfield. Like he's like, he's on loan from Medfield College, like that kind of thing.
Oh, you know what? I totally remember that.
Yeah.
Because I actually that was like one of my last rides I went to when I went to Disney World this year.
Yeah.
And it's very cute because it's such a leftover remnants of early 2000s Disneyland, Disney World. Like it's holding on. Like it's just like, but you can tell that like someone's gonna go, we probably need to refurbish that. But I'm like, don't. If anything, just keep all the references to like, because there's like Honey I Shrunk the Kids reference. There's Flubber, both Flubber. I think both Flubber and Absent Minded are referenced in there, not just etc. So yeah, no, I'm that's the you're right. That is the element they included into the mythology. FYI, side note, as a kid, my favorite of the Kurt Russell college movies, Strongest Man in the World.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Little Cesar Romero action in there, too.
I like the computer wore tennis shoes.
That's good.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Too. But I don't know. I think for some reason, Strongest Man kept playing more. So I think I was just exposed to it more.
And then I don't think it was the same. I don't think this was related to Medfield College. Barefoot Executive. That was another one that I remember watching a lot as a kid.
Is that also an ape?
I think Kurt. Yeah, but I think Kurt's in there. I think he's in there.
Barefoot Executive.
I think he's hanging out with an ape for some reason. Don't know why. Couldn't tell you.
Now, if you're wondering what happened to Betsy, right? Well, because he didn't show up to his wedding. Well, Betsy, of course, rightfully is mad and understandable. She's pissed off at him yet again and calls off the relationship. But of course, that means there's some sort of other suitor.
There was a guy waiting.
He came,
not even waiting. He came to the wedding knowing that he was going to fail.
He's going to fail. Yeah. And this guy's already jumping in, setting up dates, setting up a new romance with Betsy. And Betsy is only going with it because she's just mad. You know?
Yeah. And the other thing, when he misses the wedding, it's because of the explosion.
Yeah.
He gets knocked out.
Yeah.
Well, he was already pushing it, doing the experiment, but the explosion knocks him out. And when he wakes up, he thinks it's like 12 hours have passed, but he thinks it's the right time.
Right.
So he thinks he's still on time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Until he like finds out like, no.
The housekeeper like comes in and is like, what are you doing here?
Like you're late to your wedding. No, I'm not talking about it. It's like, I got like 20 minutes left. It's the morning.
Yeah. So yeah, it was very much his own mess up, but he was earnestly trying to be there on time.
You know, one of the things I gotta say about the casting of Fred McMurray is that like it's very hard to actually be mad at him, even though I think I have every right to be mad at him. And I almost feel like you kind of get that's maybe why Betsy held on for so long, is that it's hard to be super pissed at him, even though he is so wrong. Like, so when he comes into the next scene to apologize to Betsy, but also he's excited about Flubber.
Yeah.
Like a weirdo, he's not explaining why he's excited, or nor does he fully explain why Flubber is important. He literally is. Betsy's talking to like I forgot like who's like another like the dean.
Yeah, she's the secretary for like the president of the college.
So he's trying to get her attention, and he's just mouthing the words Flubber.
He just like says it 100 times.
And I'm like sitting going like, Ned, she don't know what the fuck that is, man.
And then even when he does try and show it to people, they just keep saying like, "That's a ball. Get out of here."
It's like, yeah, no, Brainerd, you have to like explain a lot better.
And then he shows Betsy at one point and he's bouncing it and she's like, "Yeah, it's a bouncing ball. Like, get out."
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah. Because it's hard to like, unless you really like, he has to explain it.
Yeah.
Like, he has to explain what the hell this is.
You have to see the full experience and the full presentation. But he's too excited.
Yeah.
But which is, I think that is the quality of Fred McMurray, is that like you can play this guy who's like, he is sincerely sorry. But also, isn't this great? Like, nah, I have to like him. I have to like that guy. That guy has to be, like, if he was annoying by any iota, that would have made me go, I don't like this character. Or I don't want to support this character. But I think that is the inherent quality of Fred McMurray. I want to put a weird note. Fred was 53 when he did this film. You know? And no real significance of like him being middle-aged. I just kind of found that fascinating that like, oh, he can lead a film, you know, and still be like, oh, hey, you know, I'm America's dad, America's favorite, you know, you know, etc.
But then the basketball game. So he goes because he knows that Betsy's going.
Right.
And they sit through the first half of the game. And they're losing. They're losing so bad.
Terribly.
Really, really bad. And I actually really like he realizes what he can do if he puts a little flubber on the shoes.
Yeah.
And so he sneaks back there, puts the flubber on the shoes at halftime. And then he gives a pep talk.
Yeah.
And because the coach is like, he's like,
out.
He's like, yeah, he's like, it's not going to happen. And then he's like, no. He's like, but he emphasizes, he's like, bounce, jump for it. Like, he's really making sure that they understand, like, you have jumping power now. And we had seen, you know, they showed the basketball game and the other team is just large. Like, it's like a ridiculous, like, everyone's like obviously a basketball player, but it's like, they're like tall. Like, they're incredibly tall. So it was already like stacked against them. And the other funny detail. So the new suitor guy, who's like an old friend, comes from the opposing college. So he's like rooting for the other team.
Yeah.
So it's already like there's kind of some fun, like where, like you said, where Tommy Kirk, his son, is like, he wants to root for his team even though the dad is betting against them. Then you have like Ned and what's the other guy, Paul? Like, he has some other dumb name, but and who even plays? Where is he and who plays him? Is that Jeffrey Daggett?
I feel like that sounds right.
It could be it. Yeah, it could be this guy.
It could be that guy.
But yeah, he's like, everyone's kind of like opposing each other in different ways in this basketball game. And then like the stakes are winning the game. You know, like there's it's like, it's kind of a very fun scene, even though it kind of goes on and on. It's very important, but it's like everything's kind of like, oh yeah, there's like this happening, that happening.
I think I can see why Disney put this scene in my compilation.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's genuinely great.
The players are flying all over the place.
It's really kind of beautifully executed.
They do like little things where people bounce in in motion together. Like
yeah.
the whole team is like flying at the other team.
The choreography is actually kind of great. Like
Yeah.
whatever the rigs they put on the characters is very seamless.
Yeah.
It's really well shot. And I think I don't know what it is. I think it's a smart sound design move. I know in their heart of hearts, they were really close to putting a boing. They really were thinking about doing it. Because why wouldn't you, right?
Yeah.
But then someone got smart and went, that's going to be annoying because everyone's doing it. Like, the whole team's got to do it. That means we have to do that multiple times. And that's just going to drive everyone in the audience crazy. So someone went, no, don't put that. We get the idea. We can see it. Maybe we'll do squeaks for the basketball shoes, but that's it. And I think that's what creates this sort of like very watchable quality, is that the audio wise is like, oh, there's no distracting cartoony bouncing noise. It's just like you're just too caught up in the synchrony of like everyone bouncing together or jumping over people or jumping over rafters. Or jumping onto the hoop in the back. And it's like, actually my favorite bit is like, the other team coach is like going up to the ref and he's going like, well, clearly they're doing something illegal. And then the ref, who's still befuddled because he's also seeing this too, and he's going, there ain't nothing illegal about them jumping higher.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very much like there's nothing in the rules that says a dog can't play. Like his parents like, hey. He's like, I don't know what's going on, but it's allowed.
It's allowed. I also kind of want to point out, I love the real physicality of Flubber in terms of just like as a thing. I like the visuals of him like ironing the Flubber into the shoe.
Right. Yeah.
I like that Flubber is this real tactile thing he's pulling and stretching. And I kind of think that's more interesting to me. I like the fact that the Flubber is this like real, like, look, kids like slime even to this day.
Yeah.
And I like that, like, that Flubber is like a substance he can kind of go like, oh, okay, cool. I can cut it and rip it apart and blah, 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 blah. It's, and like that visual of like him just melting in Flubber into the shoes is something I never forgot. And so, yeah, I think it really does like work. In terms of like making it a cool, scientific, and maybe something that you can wrap your head around. Put a pin on that.
Yeah.
So they win clearly after that.
Well, they do win by 1 point. It's like they have a lot of catching up to do, but they make it. It's like that game-winning shot happens. Yeah.
But I do like that even at the end of it, right? Like again, I think it's just Brainerd's social skills. That's where he screws up. He goes at the Betsy. And he points out, like, going, hey, see, look, that's great, right? They won because of me.
Yeah.
And it's like realizing he doesn't know what that looks like.
Yeah.
How that makes him look.
Doesn't she think she's like, yeah, you gave him a pep talk, but that doesn't mean you won the game.
Yeah,
like,
wait, like, you really are putting this on you? I do love that their coach, I forgot about that. That's a bit like the coaches are going, why are they so good? And their coaches are going, Brainerd, talk to them. I don't know what he said, but.
Yeah.
But no. It actually makes him look worse because he's trying to take credit for that, which, to be fair, he is right. But yeah, it isn't a good look.
Yeah.
Now, what does end up happening? Old Banker Wynn. One night he does catch something in the air.
Yeah.
It is Brainerd in his Model T. Doing a bit of night flying.
Yeah.
And I even like how he calls in like his son. He's going, what does your teacher fly? What does he own? He goes, oh, he owns like a Model T. Like that one up there? Yeah, like that one up. Yeah. So, of course, he wants to own it. He wants to sell it.
Yeah.
He wants to figure out what the hell it is that he can sell. And so he does confront Brainerd like the next day, And Brainerd's like, nope. I don't want to corporatize.
But yeah.
Yeah, he does want to bring it to the government.
Yes. There is like a lot of silly government business at the end.
I want to point out the president-elect at the time was John F. Kennedy. So I get it. maybe we makes sense back then.
Mhm.
You want to give it to JFK. Anyway, but yes, that was I was like, who was the president at that time? Even though they can make up their own president,
Yeah.
I'm like, who was the guy in charge? Oh, I see. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
He did talk about putting a man on the moon.
Yeah,
Flubber
yeah.
could get you on the moon
Flubber
pretty quick.
could get you on the moon real easy.
Oh boy, Flubber can get you everywhere. Now I have to admit, I didn't have time to watch the sequel.
That's
But
surprising to me.
if that's what the sequel was, Flubber get you to the moon.
You didn't watch Son of Flubber. That's
I
a
didn't
rarity
watch-
in this show.
I know. We had a lot going on.
That's fair. That's fair. I'll get to my feelings. I read about what happened at Son of Flubber.
Oh, okay.
So we'll wait until like after the break.
Uh-huh.
But no. So he says no. So of course, what any dastardly villain do in this scenario?
He steals the car.
He steals the car.
What else are you gonna do?
What are you gonna do?
You're gonna steal the car.
I forgot how exactly Ned finds out. Oh, because he did an experiment. He did a government showcase. Remember that?
Yes, he was trying to show off the car, but they stole the. Yeah.
It was Tommy Kirk's character, the son.
Yeah.
Biff was like, "Hey, Dad." He pops, as they probably said in the movie. I know a guy who we just switched to cars. It's 1961. You could probably still get a couple of people there are probably several people who own a Model T. So that's what they decided to do. Is like he came up with the idea of like switching the cars, and Edwin, his father, what was the character's name?
Keenan Wynn.
Keenan, thank you.
Yeah, Alonzo P. Hawk.
Alonzo P. Hawk.
That's such a crazy name.
You'd only be a villain if your full name is Alonzo P. Hawk.
Mhm.
Anyway, Alonzo P. Hawk. This is also one of those moments where he does get his father's approval, but it's in that really fucked up way, right?
Yeah.
He's like going, "Hey, I knew you were good for something, kid. He's your son. You son of a bitch."
Yeah.
You give him encouragement more often. Anyway, so they hires a couple of goons and steals the car, swaps it with another Model T, and as Ned's trying to show some generals, like, this is Flubber, this is my flying car, doesn't go anywhere, doesn't fly. And this is kind of one of those moments where him and Betsy, he looks like a fool, the government generals are mad, they walk off, and Betsy's up like going like, okay, so look, whatever you're going through right now, whatever mental breakdown you're going through, we'll get through it together. And then he realizes the car's not his. Didn't he say, I don't have a radio?
Yeah, the radio. There was
Yeah.
something about a radio. Yeah.
And so he's like, then clearly remembers Alonzo P. Hawk wanting to like own Flubber, and he started to go like, okay, he has my car.
Yeah.
I don't know how and where it is, but he has it. And I think finally, like, he shows, like, doesn't he finally show Betsy all the capabilities of Flubber? Like, she gets it finally?
Yeah.
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 So the plan then is for them to go to Alonzo's their house and basically try to figure out a way how to talk him into explaining where the car is at, right? So they get over there, and he just, and basically he's like, that thing you wanted?
Oh, he gives him the shoes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That thing you want, here it is.
Yeah.
And he starts jumping around, all, and having a grand old time. And then Ned's like, oh, here, do this. And he jumps out the window.
Yeah.
And Betsy's like egging him on. I'm like, come on. Was that fun? You can do it.
The visual of Alonzo jumping just in the air constantly is so funny.
It's so.
But then I got scared because I was like, he is gonna hit space. That was where Flubber in space came from in my mind. It was like, he's gonna hit space.
One of the best camera
Yes.
movements.
Yeah.
Is his POV.
Mm-hmm.
Alonzo's POV of bouncing up and down as he's talking to Ned and Betsy. And that is one of those, like, that is very cool.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's like a real recent rig someone figured out how to make.
Yeah.
But whatever they did, it's great. It's a really simple, but also like it's one of those like shots where I feel like that feels very modern. Like we can easily get that kind of shot nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
But to know that like these were heavier cameras in 1961 to kind of create this like fluid up and down
Yeah.
visual POV shot is very cool. I kind of do want to call out director really quick. Robert Stevenson.
He did a lot of live action Disney.
He was a Disney guy. He was definitely a Disney guy, British filmmaker. And
He did Bed Knobs and Broomsticks. The first two Herbies.
He did Johnny Tremaine. He did Old Yeller.
Yeah.
Did episodes of Zorro. Oh, I love Zorro. And let's see here. I'm gonna do
Darby O'Gill.
Darby O'Gill.
Misadventures of Merlin Jones, which I think takes place at Medfield College. Oh, Midvale. That was one of their weird. They're like, oh, maybe we'll do another college.
Mary Poppins.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. He's. I will say he's a heavy hitter. Between
that darn cat.
Oh God. The Love Bug, as I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
And Herbie Rides Again. No.
His last feature was the Shaggy DA, which is the sequel to the Shaggy Dog.
Oh. Yeah. Okay.
So he's
a big guy. He's and I will say, looking at his like kind of track record, pretty strong track record of live action Disney movies.
Yeah.
I think even the fact that he did Absent Minded Professor and Mary Poppins alone shows like, oh yeah, this guy almost, you can say again, like just like he defined the Disney movie look and the kind of Disney movies they make. Also, knowing that like he had some experience of figuring out like animation bits in this movie, I'm sure obviously led to figuring out the way more complicated stuff they did in Mary Poppins.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, no, kudos to Robert Stevenson. I would say his directing is really is like a strength of this movie. It does like maintain its tone. It's really, there's a lot of really great shots and sequences, and it's funny. So yeah, no, good on him. This is really fun stuff here.
So the finale is basically he gets the flying car back, then the government's going to shoot him down.
Yeah. I do like the bit of business he does with like kind of Flubber fighting the goons. That's actually kind of fun, where he's doing the same trick over and over again. But I actually like that the payoff is slightly different. Like it's like, oh, this is actually kind of fun. Maybe the closest I'll ever see Fred McMurray be in action here.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah.
But you're right. The government. That's right. There's a whole sequence where the government was about ready to shoot the Model T down.
Yeah.
There is some great bits of like other pilots going, no. No, I actually really love this one part where it's like one pilot's calling his like superior officer, and he's like, so it's a Model T. Say what again? It's a Model T. Sir, what do we do? I'm calling somebody else. Oh yeah, I want to point out how they stop Hawk from jumping up and down. It's actually a cute little bit of business. What I really like is that Biff, Tommy Kirk's character, his plan is to he gets a bunch of football players.
Oh yeah,
and clearly his friends. And I actually like that he's sort of living it up at this point. He's like, he's got some popcorn. He's just sort of letting his dad.
Well, because the news crews have come. Because a man bouncing like that is going to attract some attention.
Yeah, this is where Edwin comes in playing the fire chief. There's one scene.
Yeah,
and he's like, I don't know how to stop this. And it is kind of great because it is Biff's kind of time to just sort of get his let his dad get some comeuppance. So he's sort of letting it happen for a little while. But he also knows everyone's like, oh, that guy's I don't think he's gonna survive this. Look, I'll get someone to stop it. So what he does is get a bunch of football players. And at the right moment, they just tackle him down so he can stop bouncing.
Yeah.
So yes, they get they get a hold of the president. They're at the White House. And he finally, they look like they make some sort of deal with the government. Finally, and then after that, he also finally gets married.
Yeah.
Properly. And it's kind of great because the priest is like, thank God.
A cute ending.
They fly off just got married on their car, and they're flying off. Yeah. Actually, he did say just finally get married. And yeah. That's a fun movie.
It's a fun movie. I liked it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I had a good time. I was like, yeah, this is. I do want to watch Son of Flubber. I will watch it. at some point.
Which is weird. It's not on Disney Plus.
No?
No.
Oh my god.
Which I don't know what that means. But...
I'm gonna go find it.
Oh, you'll find it. Oh, trust me. If you, I'll get to those later. But anyway,
I do have to say, as much as one of my favorite things is watching old obscure Disney things, if it's not on Disney Plus, that makes it almost better.
Like
if I have to go find it somewhere else, I'm like, oh hell yeah, they're hiding this from me. I don't know why. I don't know why, but I gotta go find it. There was
sweeter.
What was it? It was like they don't have. It's not Make Mine Music. It's one of their package films of just music numbers. It was like the last one in the series. Mm-hmm. It's not on Disney Plus. It's not streaming. It's not anywhere. Yeah. I had to go to a library to check it out on DVD, and I was like, I don't know why. It looks fine to me. Don't know.
Well, okay. Before we forget, we're going to take a nice break.
Mm-hmm.
And when we come back, we'll bounce on in to 1997 and remember once again about Flubber.
To all who come to this happy podcast, welcome.
Animusings are your musings.
Here age relives fond memories of the past.
And here youth may savor the challenge and promise of the future.
Hi, I'm David.
And I'm Kayla.
And if it wasn't readily apparent from that, we're huge nerds about Disney. That's why we're doing the Animusings podcast.
Once a month, we'll sit down and talk about a film in detail from the Walt Disney Animation Studios filmography, covering them in chronological order, from Snow White to Moana and beyond.
To Moana and beyond!
Sweetie, we're not doing Pixar yet. We'll do that after.
And that's going to be a long time coming. Anyway, if that sounds up your alley, come join Kayla and I, and maybe a guest or two, as we explore the Disney animated canon, film by film.
With the hope that it'll be a source of joy and inspiration to all the world.
Ooh, nicely said.
Don't thank me, thank Walt.
Before we bounce on in, let's bounce on over to Patreon. Patreon.com/nothingnew, where you can find all of our bonus episodes. Every month we do a bonus episode, usually related to the main episode, continuing on with a different movie in the series, another remake if it exists, sometimes making up our own stuff because it's fun like that. But let's see what's cooking up this month right now. When I pitched this, you were excited for one reason.
I love Harry Anderson.
Tell me about Harry Anderson.
I love Harry Anderson. Harry or Harry DeHat, if you're watching Cheers. Harry Anderson, comedian, magician, one of my favorite, kind of personalities in the 1980s. We actually did talk about Harry Anderson before in the podcast in It chapter.
Oh, right.
In the It TV miniseries.
Yes.
He was the character that would later be played by Bill Hader and played by Finn Wolfhard. But he was in that as well. So we actually got
and
to
Seth Green, right?
Yeah, Seth Green played the young version of him.
Yeah.
So, no, I've always been a fan of his. I was a big Night Court guy growing up, but also loved his character in Cheers. I always thought he was really funny. Brother Louis Anderson, also very funny.
Oh, see, I never realized.
Yeah.
Huh.
So I was a big fan of Harry. And so when you were like, there was a TV special that had Harry Anderson as the professor, and I was like, what? That's actually great casting. Yeah. And I'll actually still admit, I think he's enjoyable here. I think this is the... You can listen to that fully on our Patreon, along with many, many years of content as Andrew listed. Once again, these episodes are only going to be on Patreon. They're not going to be released on the main timeline. But it's only $1 a month, and you can join the rest of our fellow patrons for all the fun listening that you can get on our Patreon. And, maybe encourage us a little bit. If you want to pay for 1 month, you can tell us what movies to cover. We've got a lot of great episodes for $25 for 1 month. We've got a lot of great episodes in which you, the audience, can tell us, we want you to talk about this and this. In episodes like King Kong, our Power Rangers episode, our Return to Christmas Carol.
With the Muppets,
and etc. So, Patreon, join the rest. And if you are a Patreon supporter, thank you very much. We appreciate you. Okie dokie. So, we're back. I think it was inevitable, wasn't it? It was inevitable for a big screen return.
Sure.
right? It seems
Sure.
like that was a case.
Uh-huh.
Seemed like that was bound to happen.
Mm.
And if there was anyone who was gonna be doing that, I guess it makes sense for the 90s for that man to be John Hughes.
Yeah, this is one of those funny things where even if you didn't know John Hughes was involved in the writing, about 30 minutes in, something happens where you're like, oh, he's just repeating Home Alone. Okay, he's just repeating Home Alone.
This will be about, look, like, this is not going to be a all John Hughes talk, but I will admit that it's very fascinating that, like, there was the 80s era John Hughes that many people are obsessed with, but then, yes, after Home Alone, he was definitely comfortable with this stuff.
Yeah.
This was John Hughes' money-making stuff. This was his bread and butter for basically the rest of his career until he stopped making films. He was making things like Flubber. But he didn't, of course, direct it. He just wrote the script, did one along with the screenplay writer, Bill Walsh. The director of this film is Les Mayfield. And this is a return for both Les Mayfield and John Hughes.
Yes.
Why?
Yes, Miracle on 34th Street.
Bada boom.
Which is truly like a beautiful movie. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, wait, and then they did this? What? Huh?
I also want to point something else. This movie came out in 97. You know what I couldn't help but notice? That made me feel? Is that 3 years ago, a certain movie starring a comedian who blew the hell up in 1994 did a movie about a guy who discovers a magical thing that he puts on his face, turns into a wild cartoon dancing green-headed guy, and does a very memorable sequence with him.
With a mambo? This is so funny that you bring that up, because in my mind, I'm thinking, well, of course Disney's gonna remake this film. This is their original crazy inventor film. They just spent the 90s and part of the 80s doing a series of crazy inventor films. Wayne Zielinski in his Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Honey, I Blew Up the Kid, Honey, We Shrunk Ourselves. Or was that after this? It could have been after this, but it's like the whole, like, if you have, and even, I don't remember which one in that series, but one of them starts with his overcomplicated breakfast making system. And I'm like, that's in this, like, what was Disney doing? They were just like combining all of pop culture into this movie.
That's so, it's funny. I didn't even think about your angle.
Yeah.
But you know what, folks? Both can be true.
I didn't think about the mask at all, but yeah, it's like, a green dancing fool. Sure.
Why else is Flubber now a sentient being?
Well, I think they were also, it was like a little bit of trying to get that genie magic.
Yeah, the little genie magic.
Because also, okay, so
it's getting that little genie magic. Also, Terminator 2, like the advent of CGI, everyone's real stoked about that.
Yeah.
So
it's Robin Williams.
It's Robin Williams.
Who was Genie in Aladdin, which we've covered before. And so here he is, and now they give him several silly sidekicks, which is Flubber is a non-speaking dancing blob, and then Wemo, is that the name?
Wemo.
The robot, who is actually voiced by Jodie Benson, Ariel herself, who appears in the new Little Mermaid, and we covered that, the whole thing.
Yeah.
So it's all like Disney's like, it's like they have a big cauldron.
Yeah.
They're the evil witch making a potion. They got a big cauldron. They just throw in all these parts. It doesn't matter if they match. And what comes out is like a semi-enjoyable, like I'm sure it made enough money. You know what I mean? Like, but it was fine.
No, you're not wrong. I think that's the correct word to use it. Yeah. I think that's the correct way of explaining it. It's semi-enjoyable. Even when I saw this in theaters as a kid, I walked out kind of going like, it's fine. And it's, you know what, it's like, here's the thing. There's so many actually talented people in this film.
Yeah.
Involving in this film. Like, I plain forgot, Danny Elfman did the score.
Oh my God. As soon as the movie started, I went, what the fuck? I was like, is this Batman? What's going on here? It had that little like, like, it was like weird.
It also kind of shows that, like, even if you hire a composer who's good at what they do and can create a unique sound, if the film doesn't jive with it, like it doesn't jive visually with it, it sort of, the music is forgettable, you know. And I think Les Mayfield Les's directing doesn't really jive with, or the editing doesn't really jive with what Danny's giving them.
Yeah.
So why would I think Elfman did the score? It doesn't, because nothing is super strong about this.
The other thing is, like, look, we love Robin Williams.
We do love Robin Williams.
He goes big though.
Yes.
And this is not a character that goes big. Like the original, like he is a very understated, like you said, if he was more annoying, you would hate him. And it's not, I don't even think Robin Williams hits that more annoying. He is Robin Williams.
Right.
And he's like throwing out the references. He's doing his silly shtick. They actually show him going to the wrong class to teach.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an incredibly funny scene.
Yes.
That's like the perfect showcase for what kind of movie Robin Williams should be in for this
Right.
movie.
Right.
Where it's like he showed up at the wrong class. He doesn't notice that it is a nude life drawing class.
Mm-hmm.
And then even when he does notice, he rolls with it because his brain is just like, whatever. He's like, oh, for example, the nude man over here, and he would be attracted to the nude woman. And it's like, it's funny, almost racy Robin Williams-ish like shtick, but it's toned down enough for the Disney movie. But it works.
It works.
It's
I agree.
A funny scene.
Yes.
Very funny.
No, this is what a great example. That's I remember literally laughing at that bit, and it's in character.
Yes.
If the character is absent-minded, then yes, he will not remember where his class is at or his students. He will remember his lesson because he's a brilliant man in that regard, but he will not realize until 5 minutes later.
He finally sees it on the board that it's written the name of the class, and he's like, wait a second.
He's like,
nothing else makes him realize. No other part of the
not
room.
the easels, not the pencils, not the stars, or the two nude models. Yes, it's actually a very funny scene, and I think this goes into the point of like Robin Williams is a talent you need to control. But I don't mean that in a way that's like just allow him to do his thing. It's like, look, at the end of the day, like actors need guidance. They need their guidance to know what you and the story, what needs to be done for the story. That's the job of the director. So like, I think Les Mayfield, either he didn't quite know exactly how to 100% what he needed out of Robin, so his wife's performance is a little bit spread out.
Yeah.
And
there's even some. I'm like he ad-libbed some of these lines for sure.
Sure.
And they are. I should have written it down. There was a line that I was like, I had to say it to myself 3 times to even understand what he was referencing. Like it was so pop culture-y of that moment. I was like, that didn't belong. Like that needed to be cut out because he's playing, like you said, in character, the absent-minded professor, not a guy who would remark upon a pop culture moment. Like it was so like out of the field. I was like, yeah, that's not the character.
And I feel like that could also be a Disney thing.
Yeah.
They were like, well, we got Genie in a movie.
Yeah.
Let him do Genie stuff.
Well, and then the other weird thing. So Wemo is this flying robot. Again, the CGI was out of control. But this flying robot communicates by talking and also by showing clips.
Right.
And so they, of course, show a lot of Disney clips, but they also just show clips from other things.
Yeah.
And it's like so bizarre, but it is in that Genie style of like, we got to throw in references.
No, she threw a clip of like people laughing from a clip from The Simpsons.
Yeah.
Which at the time they did not know. So I agree. I feel like there's this one element where I think like Disney studio execs are probably pushing for throwing more pop culture references. Because I feel like when I think of Robin Williams as someone you utilize in the film, I think of the fact, like I said, like you have to kind of like hone him. It's probably a better term than control him. Hone him. And I feel like when he understands the assignment of a scene, he's brilliant because that's how good he is. I always think of his performance in Jack. Remember Jack, where he plays like a kid, but he's in the body of Robin Williams?
Yeah.
So there's a scene where in that movie he is talking to the class for the first time, right? And he's acting like a 10-year-old. But a 10-year-old who's shy. He's brilliant in that scene. It's a scene that he acts like a kid. He doesn't really, he's looking at the ground. He doesn't really know what to say. But when he mentions something that he likes, he kind of gets excited. And all the other kids like follow with that energy. That's a scene of a 10-year-old. That's a real kid. Even though it's played by 50-year-old Robin Williams. That works. But there's a scene later where he's talking to like some sexy adult and he does Robin Williams shtick. And I'm like, that's not what a kid will do.
Yeah.
Here, the scene you just described, That's brilliant, Robin Williams. That's Rob Williams who gets. He's a brilliant scientist. He's talking really fast. He's confident in his words and what he's saying. He just doesn't realize where he's in, and that's the strength of the character. That's the strength of Rob Williams as a performer. But you have to hone that. You have to make sure he's consistent with that, scene to scene to scene. When you let Robin do his thing, it's out of place.
He amps it up. That's all. It's just he really amps it up, and there are times where his amping is beautiful. It's you love it, but then there are times where it's like you needed someone to say stop.
Yeah. No,
and that's all. Yeah.
That's it. Weibo. I want to talk about Weibo.
Oh, Weibo.
Now, I will say this: if you listen to our Patreon, there was a clear connection.
Yes.
To Weibo in our Patreon discussion. It's funny. We haven't even recorded it, but I already know because you and me have seen it. We know. We already know.
But yeah.
But anyway, look, I love Jodie Benson. I love Jodie Benson's performance as Ariel. I remember one of my first early interview experiences. I got to talk to Jodie about Little Mermaid. She's great, and she does a good job here. I'll even admit to that. But Weibo is a character that feels like it was an early idea, early drafts concept, and then they never really did more than draft 2, and just stayed in that character in the draft 2, not realizing how much more complicated they made it or how unnecessary it feels. Do I need a floating droid who's in love with Robin Williams? No. Where is that room? There is no room for that. There's, funny enough, Williams' character is still named Brainerd. His name is Philip this time. But where is the room for that? There is no room for that. There is no room for us to really feel them as their relationship as characters, to make us care like that. She is treated like R2-D2.
Yeah.
She's just there, but then isn't this an amazing invention he created? He made a fully automated AI floating droid in 1997.
And what he normally uses to describe it is she keeps track of my schedule.
That's an iPhone.
That's a Palm Pilot.
That's a Palm Pilot in 97.
You've done something insane here.
You did something clearly more.
You've gone above and beyond. And he already has another robot that doesn't speak that cleans the house.
Right.
And that's already that's pretty impressive too.
Side note, you mentioned about the breakfast scene.
Yeah.
Can I point out? I've seen better.
Yeah.
I've seen better, and it's been done better. So me wondering, why did you even bother with a robot making a breakfast sequence when I've seen this done already better in other films? That is a pop culture, right? It's just we'll just put a bunch of things.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
the Rube Goldberg machine of an inventor who is doing something crazy. Yeah. Wallace and Gromit. Come on.
Right. Back to the Future.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I don't we don't need it.
Yeah.
Not unnecessary.
I do want to talk. I mean, we'll just talk in Weibo's arc in this film. Weibo is a character, and she's given an arc, but it is this weird thing where, you're saying, it does feel like it's like an entirely different movie.
Yeah.
Where she's in love with the professor. At a certain point, she decides to make a CGI hologram of herself.
Right.
Which is when I saw that happening, I was like, is this going somewhere? I really couldn't grasp where it was going.
Right. And why we were going there.
And so this hologram goes to kiss Brainerd in bed, but then he wakes up realizing something. The rest of the movie was happening around this weird plot. And then there are goons. We'll get to the goons.
I'll get to the goons. We'll definitely get to the goons.
The goons kill Weibo.
Yeah.
And it's one of those, they really lay it on thick, Weibo's death.
Yeah.
And I hate to say, I was unaffected. I was like, why do we care? I don't know why we care.
There's not enough scenes.
Yeah.
Of Weibo with, maybe he might be maybe Weibo should have been with him in school, going to school with him.
Yeah.
So that the rest of the staff likes Weibo.
There's one scene where Weibo talks to Betsy. Is that her name in this one too? Yeah.
Sarah Jean, actually.
Yeah, Sarah.
Played by Marsha Gay Harden in this film.
Incredibly. And they upgrade her character from being the secretary to the full-on president, which is great.
That's a good upgrade.
Yeah. And so there's a scene where Weibo goes and talks to her.
Yeah.
And I was like, we need more of this.
That's a good scene.
Yeah, I was like,
that
holy
was actually
shit.
very sweet, But also Weibo, because she's in love.
Yeah.
Air quote. She's in love. Again, we won't point out she's in love with Philip. It makes things hard for me to kind of like especially because he was forgetting about the wedding, and Weibo specifically made sure he didn't go.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a hard time sympathizing with Weibo, knowing that she created more of a struggle for him.
Yeah. Which at that point it's like, well, it's not. He didn't miss it because he was absent-minded.
Yeah, he was missing his jealous girlfriend of a robot.
Like one of the first jealous AI movies.
Yeah.
Now it's just like every year we get 3 of them, but like back then it was like a novelty.
It's like a novelty.
Yeah. Well, and so was I wanted to get to the point Weibo's death and then kind of resurrection.
Yeah.
It's like Weibo left plans for an advanced Weibo, whatever it's called. Weebet. But I was like, this is like in every movie now.
Yeah.
Like there are so many movies where they have the robot companion who sacrifices himself or dies, and then it's like, oh, but we have the chip, or oh, we have their data saved, and they rebuild them.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is just
I won't spoil the movie because I don't want to. I won't spoil the movie because I won't say what movie it's from because it will spoil it. But I will say a big film that came out this year does Weibo better.
Oh, okay.
And same fate happens to that character in that movie, but I got emotionally invested and I was like kind of tearing up when it happened.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very clear you can do this, but you have to really earn these moments.
Yeah.
And it doesn't feel earned here.
Yeah.
I do want to jump a bit into what I think is actually strong casting.
Okay.
At least visually. So Biff Hawk is sort of in the movie.
Yes.
There is a variation of him here. This time, though, the character is Honecker. Chester Honecker. He's the
evil banker.
The evil banker. The character they picked, I want to point this out. So Tommy, what was his name again? Tommy
Kirk.
Tommy Kirk was the guy who played him in the original film.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so funny. I actually really liked Tommy Kirk because I actually really liked the Shaggy Dog as a kid.
Yeah.
So I really liked Tommy Kirk. But even when I was watching that movie, I just kept thinking, it's so weird. This guy looks so much like Will Wheaton.
Oh.
This kid looks like Will Wheaton. You know, especially when I watch like Stand By Me. I went, oh, look, that guy, he looks like the guy from Shaggy Dog.
Yeah.
So I didn't know this while watching this in 1997. And I did actually, funny enough, even as a kid, I did decide to watch the original movie. I rented it again. And I didn't watch original Maps of Mind Professor before I went to go see Flubber. And all of a sudden, the banker's son comes in, and it's Will Wheaton!
Yeah.
and I was like, mind blown. I went, wait, what? Did you read my journal?
And Bennett is his character's name.
Yeah.
He is a jerk.
This time he's a jerk.
Yeah, they just full on are like, nah, he's bad.
But you have to imagine where my brain broke. Because like as a kid, I'm like, oh, he looks a lot like Will Wheaton. Then fucking Will Wheaton shows up in the remake to play his character. But he's a bastard, so oh well.
I will say the cast in this is kind of out of control. Like,
we talk about the hired goons?
Yes.
The hired goons. My mind was blown who the hired goons were.
It's Clancy Brown and Ted Levine.
And if that name, okay, if you want us to explain why my brain is like, what?
Yeah.
Clancy Brown, I'll start. You know, if you're a fan of the Highlander, the Kurgan, amazing villain. If you're a fan of Shawshank Redemption, yes, he was wonderful in that movie too. Even Starship fucking Troopers, which came out the same year.
Yeah.
Clancy Brown plays a hired goon. But let's go into Ted Levine. Ted Levine. What are you doing in a Disney movie?
Yeah,
Buffalo Bill?
Well, and also like you know him as like a gruff cop. Like that's like his look, and to see him play a dumb goon, I was like, I think he's having fun.
Yes.
Because it's so different from what he normally does.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to put any thought into it. He's like, oh, boss, I messed up. Like, that's like the whole performance.
So if you're a fan of The Silence of the Lambs or even Monk.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. I think Ted Levine was him and Clancy were having fun.
Yeah.
I think that's what they got.
And-
I'm sure they got decent money for it, but they were playing. They were getting paid to play like the freaking Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern.
They're playing the Wet Bandits.
They're playing the Wet Bandits, and like I forget, like Clancy, he's a big dude.
Mm-hmm.
He's an imposing guy, and I forgot that this is the right age for both of them to still play goon guys.
Yeah.
You know, probably the last year they could play goon dudes.
They literally are dressed the same. They are basically. It's as if they were Batman goons. You know what I mean? Like the 1960s Batman. They're like in the same outfit. There's a part when they're recovering after the first time that Flubber attacks them. They are sitting on a couch, and I went, they're in the same, like literally like the same coat, turtleneck. It was the same everything. I was like, this is insane.
Oh
Why
my
would they
God.
make this choice?
It's so funny.
So Flubber attacks them.
Flubber attacks him.
Well, and it's more like in an absent-minded style.
Right.
Robin Williams throws balls around, and they hit the goon.
This is the most like Home Alone-y gaggy stuff.
Oh my God.
This except instead of this time being like attacked plans of fighting the Wet Bandits.
Yeah.
This is just oopsies
Yeah.
over and over.
He's like, I'm going to put some Flubber on a bowling ball and see what happens. And I'm like, dude, you know what's going to happen.
This is going back to I'm going to unpin my one pin from the first movie.
Sure.
I'm not a big fan of the Flubber in this movie.
No, it's I hate it.
I hate it. Oh, I'm just going to rip that Band-Aid off. I hate it.
When it first shows up and it's like alive, I was like, what? I mean, beyond the fact that he created a new material, it's alive.
It's a species.
It's
now.
like it's like thinking, like it's doing things.
Which means it's like if you're tearing it apart to create other forms of Flubber, I don't know how I feel about that.
Well,
that thing is technically alive.
I guess it's like an amoeba, like it's like a jelly creature.
I guess so.
Yeah, it's like it's almost like if they wanted to do that, they should have just made it like an alien. Like
Sure.
honestly, it's like stupid the way that this movie makes no sense.
Well, and it's like like I said, I like the tactile feel of the Flubber from the original film.
Yeah.
So turning Flubber into into a substance that he can turn into jelly, into spritzable water, and I'm like, that doesn't really have the same
No.
enjoyment for
Yeah.
me, you know. It makes it less interesting to me somehow. Look, I will say this. That's why we're probably not going to go a ton of beat to beat. It's actually fairly close to the original film.
Yeah. The weird choices, the changes that they made. Okay, so the romantic rival in this one is Christopher McDonald.
Jeez, I wonder if he's a jerk.
Yeah. He's a classic. He's almost like a Fred McMurray,
Yeah.
where you either see him as an absolute heel, the worst person that you want to fail everywhere, or he's like just the dad.
Yep. This is his era of heel.
Yeah.
This is his heel era. Because like
Super
this,
heel.
like, Happy Gilmore, etc.
Mm-hmm.
When I saw this guy in movies in the 90s, I'm like, oh, you're a bastard.
Yeah. And they actually so he's even worse of a person in this movie. But then it's also like the basketball scene is like Robin Williams, his Brainerd, he does the Flubber at the beginning of the game, not halfway through.
Yeah.
Or he does it in a way where it will activate halfway through.
Yeah, he's already aware.
But he's pre-planned the whole thing.
Right.
And then they also make I don't like this joke. The basketball team is nerds.
Yep.
I hate that joke.
I agree.
That's like so stupid.
Here's the other thing I don't like about it. They try to sort of do the same thing with Tommy Kirk's character, aka Bennett's character, where he finds out his dad is betting against his team, but he's offended by that because that's his team. And I'm looking at making them incompetent nerds. I then can't buy the idea that Bennett was part of that.
Yeah.
Without him being a type A-hole.
Yeah.
And like, why would he care if the nerds are losing? Like, there's no, like, again, if they could have made that interesting where he is friends with those guys, but they don't but there's no sign of that. So it just comes off as like, well, wait, you seem like kind of like a selfish jerk. Why would you be friends with the nerds? Usually in these movies, you're not a friend with these guys. And I don't buy it then. Now I'm confused. And making them like nerds initially, I agree.
Yeah.
It's like that doesn't really. It's just like you made them pathetic right off bat. Whereas in the original film, it's like, they all, other than the other guys being bigger, they're clearly athletic guys.
And they already do the other team is bigger in this movie too. Like, they're just adding more. And then even in this one, they get like I don't know the actor's name, but he's like, he plays like a very pathetic character and everything.
Mm-hmm.
The coach of the team.
Oh yeah.
And he when you see him, you're like, oh yeah, he's going to give the worst speech ever. And he does.
Oh, it's Sam Lloyd, who we sadly lost in 2020, but Scrubs.
Mm-hmm.
He was the one who do you play in Scrubs? Because I did love his character in Scrubs.
Yeah, was he a dark? I don't even know who he was in Scrubs, but yeah.
He was great in Scrubs. No, he was Ted in Scrubs. So
Yeah, so it's like that's already funny
Yeah.
to have a coach that like is the worst coach,
Mm-hmm.
but then it's also like, oh, and the team's all visual nerds, like they're all wearing the big Coke bottle glasses.
Right.
None of them look like they're in shape for basketball.
Exactly.
Like it's like, why did we need 17 layers to this?
Right.
It could have just been one extra thing, and no, they couldn't help it. They just had to do it all.
And everything that I loved about the 61 basketball sequence is hampered by overabundance of modern technology, CGI usage here. Well, people bitch nowadays about, there's too much CGI. It's like, CGI again is a tool, right? So here they got too excited about the tool of CGI, and the practically magic feeling of the first one, where it's just clearly guys on string and harnesses, but it's well shot, well executed to not make you double think on how, like, on the visual effects, it's more like, like these guys are cartoonishly jumping high. There's a little bit of the simplicity works better here. Here it's the CGI basketballs going up and down, their hands really fast, or
he sprayed the ball with Flubber.
He
too,
sprays the
which
ball
I was
with
like,
Flubber, and
well, that's going to help the other team too.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't understand how that works. So the Flubber logistics is so weird. I don't even understand. But yeah, no, it's like there's too much clearly in post visual effects here that loses a lot of its magic of the original sequence, and it's just not shot as well.
Yeah,
the basketball sequence isn't that interesting here. It's just like, oh look, it's more boing. They kind of do the
yeah,
and it's bland. It's not great. It's sort of lame. I'm not into it.
But yeah, from there, they win the game, but he still can't win back with Sarah. Yeah. It kind of goes through the same stuff. The Wemo. The goons keep trying to take the Flubber or go back to when they first get beat up. That's a really funny scene, but it is just Home Alone.
It's Home Alone. Yeah.
It's so Home Alone.
They do have a flying car in this one.
Yes,
the Flubber is flying under.
It's like a red car. It's not a Model T.
It's not a Model T. It's like a
Ford Thunderbird.
Yeah, cooler car, I guess.
Yeah,
sure, why not?
Well, it's still like vintage. Like they're still hitting that.
Yeah, and it's open.
Yeah,
They do a bit though where they try to sell Flubber to like a car company.
Yes.
And hey, cute little cameo though, I'll admit. Nancy Olsen does show up in the film, in this sequence, appearing as a secretary for the Ford company.
Yeah.
And I actually kind of like the usage. I like the simple usage of her in the fact that, like, one, if you actually watch movies back to back, you can definitely identify, oh, hey, there she is. Mm-hmm. But also is the idea that she actually isn't that fazed by the flying car.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'm going to read that as a cute little nod of like, I've seen this before.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have their Flubber sequence at the end. Their Flubber fight.
They do
sequence.
the same kind of, I'm going to pretend to sell it to the guy, and then they beat him up with it.
Yeah.
They spray Flubber on their hands, and then they have bouncy punches.
Oh, I do need to bring up the big sequences of why I brought up the mask talk before we wrap everything up. Yes, there is a unnecessarily long, full CGI dance number
Right, the Flubber Mambo.
Flubber Mambo, which is what they put in all the ads, all the trailers. They built up to the Flubber Mambo. And
there's no point to it.
There is no point to it.
Like, the way the scene is set up is that Weibo is like, I better let Flubber out.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, literally the scene before it was Dr. Brainerd saying, hey, don't let Flubber out. And she's like, I better let him out.
And then,
Then he
and that's it.
dances.
That's it. And then dances because
And he makes copies of himself and dances, like the genie does in Aladdin.
and freaking the mask.
Yeah.
Like,
I love that you went to the mask, and I'm like, damn, he's right. Like, it's like, I never think of it like that, but yes, that is kind of exactly what that is.
It is a green guy who's. I remember actually I remember it was either Siskel or Ebert when they reviewed Flubber. They were pointing at the fact that, like, who'd have thought that there would be a co-star with Robin Williams who will out rubber face Robin Williams, and that is Flubber.
Yeah.
Also, I want to bring up a very complicated joke I brought up, and I'm going to hopefully I make it work here.
Okay.
If I had a nickel for every time a female flying small partner to Robin Williams is in love with him, but can't because of weird circumstances.
Wait, who's the other one?
I'll get to that. I'll have 2 nickels because it's weird that it happened twice, and the other time it was Hook.
Oh, God! Oh, my God. Yeah, it was Hook.
It was Hook. Also, for a quick mention, Dean Cundy also DP'd this film.
No! Get out of town. Dean.
Because we had him for Garfield, and
is he still with us? Is he still working?
He's 78, so probably not. He's probably just chilling.
What was the last thing that he worked on? Where do we have to worry that he's going to pop up next?
He made a movie in 2020 that was released in 2020 called Assistant Anastasia Once Upon a Time.
Oh, he DP'd Home Again? I'm a Home Again defender. That was a fun little movie.
He was working on a bunch of stuff. The Yowzers. Jack and Jill, huh?
Yeah.
Dean, Jack and Jill. Well,
he was really in the zone for a while there. Jesus.
No, yeah.
I mean, yeah. Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Yeah.
Back to the Future. Hook. Mm-hmm. Death Becomes Her. Mm-hmm. I mean, look. I'm even going to throw in stuff like the Flintstones because
those look good.
Yeah.
For what it's supposed to be, those look good. Big Trouble in Little China. Hook.
Yeah.
Death Becomes Her.
In the
Jurassic Park.
Romancing the Stone.
In 1 year, Casper and Apollo 13, both those movies look very good.
He did The Fog and Halloween 2.
Mm-hmm.
Escape from New York. I mean, okay.
Look.
He has talent. We just don't. Let him be.
Yeah.
We'll let him be.
No. Look, the man DP'd Halloween 2. Like, look, this is. You're right. Look. He's been 78. I'll leave him alone. He's right. He's earned.
I think he's done now.
He's done now. He's earned his money, and it's fine. Garfield looked boring as hell, but you know what? I'm sure he wasn't inspired either. This movie is fine. This movie looks fine. Yeah. It doesn't. It looks all right.
It looks all right.
Goodness gracious. Yeah, I don't know. The movie does. It ends with the wedding finally, but once again.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh my God, it was on Letterboxd. My review was, this movie invented Zoom weddings, and it really pissed me off. In the final scene of this movie, they do finally get married, but he is on the robot, like he is in his lab wearing the top hat tuxedo look, but in the church is a robot.
Yeah.
With the screen.
Yeah.
I was like so mad. The ending really pissed me off.
Because it just shows he didn't learn anything.
He didn't learn anything. And Sarah didn't set any boundaries.
Yeah.
She wasn't like, show up to the wedding. She was like, yeah, I'll take a screen. Come on. Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, I guess if he showed up to the wedding, it would have been nothing new.
Please rate and review Nothing New, a Remake podcast on your podcast app.
You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at NothingNewPod.
You can find us on Patreon at patreon.com/nothingnnew.
Nothing New, a remake podcast, is part of the Benview Network.